Most people spend their entire lives trying to get ahead financially, yet never learn the basic math that could have changed everything for them. They work harder, save more, and sacrifice more time, but their money never seems to grow at the pace they hoped for. What they don't realize is that wealth is not built by effort alone. It's built by understanding how money compounds over time. The Rule of 72 is one of the simplest and most powerful tools in finance, yet it's rarely taught in school. When people hear the phrase, double your money, their minds often go straight to high-risk investments or unrealistic expectations. But the truth is far more practical. Doubling your money is about understanding how long it takes for money to grow at a certain rate. The Rule of 72 removes the confusion and gives you clarity in seconds. And once you understand the math behind it, you begin to see why the wealthy rely on compounding instead of constant labor. Many people don't realize that their money is already compounding, just very slowly. Whether it's in a savings account earning 2% or a retirement fund earning 8%, the rate of return determines your timeline for doubling. And because people never learn how to calculate that timeline, they either wait too long and lose decades, or they jump into investments without knowing whether their money is working fast enough to meet their goals. Without the ability to calculate how money doubles, you're walking blindly through the most important part of wealth building. But once this rule clicks for you, the entire financial world suddenly becomes easier to navigate. Every investment, every interest rate, every opportunity starts to make sense because you finally know the one thing that matters: the time it takes for your money to multiply. The Rule of 72 is a simple shortcut that helps you calculate how long it takes for your money to double based on a fixed rate of return. The formula is straightforward. You divide 72 by the annual interest rate, and the result tells you the approximate number of years it will take for your investment to double. For example, if you earn 8% per year, 72 divided by 8 gives you 9. That means your money doubles every 9 years. This formula is math, based on logarithmic calculations used in compound interest formulas, but you don't have to understand advanced mathematics to use it. The Rule of 72 is the bridge between everyday people and the world of financial literacy. The reason this rule is so powerful is because it translates a complex financial concept into something that anyone can understand instantly. Most people look at percentages and have no idea what they mean in real life. A 6% return sounds okay. A 12% return sounds better. But without knowing what that means in terms of time, you're only guessing. The Rule of 72 removes the guesswork. It gives you clarity. It shows you how long your money needs to grow, and more importantly, it reveals whether your current investment strategy is good enough for your long-term goals. Another reason the Rule of 72 matters is because doubling is the most important part of compounding. The faster your money doubles, the faster you build wealth. A person who doubles their money every 10 years will always end up wealthier than someone who doubles every 20 years, even if they both start with the same amount. Doubling is the engine behind financial growth, and the Rule of 72 tells you how fast that engine is running. Once you grasp that, you start thinking differently about interest rates, inflation, and returns. Everything becomes easier to evaluate because you finally understand the timeline behind your financial future. The Rule of 72 works because it's based on the natural behavior of exponential growth. When interest compounds, the growth accelerates, and the Rule of 72 captures that acceleration almost perfectly for interest rates between 4% and 12%. It's not just a guess or a rough estimate, it's actually very close to the exact doubling time calculated using logarithms. Most people don't want to sit around doing complex equations, so the Rule of 72 gives you a near-perfect shortcut that works in real-world scenarios. This is why financial planners, investors, and economists have used it for decades. Although it's a simplified version of the full compound interest formula, the rule of 72 aligns closely with real returns because of how money grows. For example, the exact doubling time at 8% interest is 9 years, and the rule of 72 also gives 9. At 6%, the exact doubling time is 11.9 years, and the rule gives 12. At 10%, the real doubling time is about 7.3 years, and the rule gives 7.2. This level of accuracy is remarkable for such a simple formula. Most shortcuts in finance are unreliable or overly simplified, but the rule of 72 has stood the test of time because it is rooted in actual exponential behavior. The reason this matters to you is because accuracy creates confidence. When you're trying to build wealth, you don't want to be guessing or relying on random advice. You need to understand how long your money will take to grow, and you need a method that is both simple and reliable. The rule of 72 gives you both. Even if you don't know anything about math or finance, you can use this rule to make smarter decisions. The more you use it, the more natural it becomes. This is the kind of knowledge that separates people who struggle financially from people who grow wealth consistently. Most people underestimate the power of doubling because the early stages of compounding look slow. Watching $1,000 grow to $2,000 doesn't feel impressive, but doubling is not about the first doubling. It's about the chain reaction that happens afterward. Every time your money doubles, the next doubling becomes larger. You go from 1,000 to 2,000, then 2,000 to 4,000, 4,000 to 8,000, and eventually 8,000 to 16,000. At first, it feels like you're climbing a hill, but eventually, it becomes a mountain. When your money starts doubling from $100,000 to $200,000, then $200,000 to $400,000, the growth becomes real and life-changing. The rule of 72 helps you understand when those doublings happen, which is why the wealthy use it religiously. The average person gets discouraged in the early stages because growth looks small and slow. They feel like nothing is happening. They get tempted to give up, pull their money out, or chase faster returns. But those who understand the rule of 72 have patience. Because they know the math behind doubling, they know that the big growth always happens later. This is why people who start investing early almost always outperform people who start late, even if the late starters contribute more money. The early starters give their money more doubling cycles, and doubling cycles are the real engine of wealth. When you understand doubling, you stop focusing on instant gratification. You stop obsessing over short-term market movements. You begin to think in terms of decades instead of days. You realize that wealth is not about timing the market. It's about time in the market. And this mindset shift sets you apart from the majority of people who give up too early. The rule of 72 shows you exactly why patience pays off. Literally, using the rule of 72 is simple. You take your expected rate of return and divide it by 72. But applying it to your life is where the real power comes in. When you look at your investments, one of the first questions you should ask is, how long will it take for this to double? If your retirement fund earns 8% per year, then your money doubles every 9 years. If a savings account gives you only 2%, it takes 36 years to double. This comparison alone helps you see the difference between slow money and fast money. It shows you which investments actually help you build wealth and which ones keep you stuck. Most people don't think about their returns in terms of doubling timelines. They settle for low interest rates because they think any growth is good growth. But once you start using the rule of 72, you realize that the speed of doubling is everything. If you're in your 20s or 30s and your investments double every 9 years, you get multiple doubling cycles before retirement. But if you settle for slow returns, you lose entire cycles, and losing just one doubling cycle can cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars over your lifetime. Using the rule of 72 also helps you evaluate opportunities. When someone promises you a 20% return, you instantly know that means your money doubles in about 3.6 years. When a company claims you can earn 4% per year, you know doubling takes 18 years. This ability to evaluate opportunities instantly protects you from scams, bad deals, and unrealistic expectations. It gives you a sense of control and confidence because you finally understand what numbers mean in real-life terms. And when you understand the time value of money, you stop falling for shortcuts and start making decisions that align with your long-term goals. Your future net worth is not determined by how much money you make. It's determined by how many doubling cycles your money completes. The rule of 72 helps you calculate exactly how many of these cycles fit into your lifetime. Let's say you start investing at age 25 and your average return is 8%. Your money doubles every 9 years. That means before age 70, you can get about 5 full doubling cycles. But if you waited until age 35 to start investing, you lose an entire doubling cycle. Losing one doubling cycle might not sound dramatic, but it can be the difference between retiring comfortably or struggling financially. To understand the impact, consider a simple example. Starting with $10,000 at age 25, if it doubles every 9 years, it grows to $20,000 by 34, $40,000 by 43, $80,000 by 52, $160,000 by 61, and $320,000 by 70 without adding a single extra dollar. That's the power of 5 doubling cycles. But if you wait until age 35, you only get 4 cycles. $10,000 becomes $20,000, then $40,000, $80,000, and finally $160,000. You lose $160,000 simply because you started 10 years later. The rule of 72 makes this painfully clear. Wealth is not just about money, it's about time. The earlier you begin, the more cycles you unlock. When people say, start early, they often don't explain why. They make it sound like generic advice. But when you view it through the lens of doubling cycles, everything changes. You start to understand why wealthy families emphasize investing early in life. They're not trying to be controlling or strict, they simply understand the math. They know a child's future wealth can multiply dramatically if they start early enough, giving them decades of doubling cycles before adulthood even begins. Every doubling cycle lost is a permanent loss of potential wealth that can never be recovered, no matter how much you invest later in life. When it comes to compounding, small differences in interest rates create massive differences in long-term outcomes. A 2% return and a 6% return might seem close, but the rule of 72 shows the truth. At 2%, your money doubles every 36 years. At 6%, your money doubles every 12 years. That means someone earning 6% gets 3 doubling cycles for every 1 cycle of someone earning 2%. The person earning the higher rate isn't working harder. They're simply letting time work for them faster. This is why wealthy individuals don't settle for low returns. They understand how even a slight increase in rate massively accelerates compounding. The difference becomes even more drastic at higher rates. At 8%, your money doubles every 9 years. At 12%, it doubles every 6 years. Those 3 years per cycle may not sound like much, but over decades they create an enormous difference. Someone who earns 12% gets far more doubling cycles than someone who earns 8%. This is why disciplined investors who study, learn, and choose their investments carefully end up far wealthier than people who simply save money or invest without strategy. The rule of 72 exposes the massive difference between being passive and being intentional. This is also why scams often lure people with promises of unrealistic returns. If someone tells you they can get you 30% per month, the rule of 72 immediately reveals the lie. That would mean your money doubles in around 2.4 months. No legitimate investment can do that safely or consistently. Without the rule of 72, people fall for promises that sound impressive. With it, you immediately see the mathematical impossibility. Financial literacy doesn't just help you grow wealth, it protects you from losing it. The rule of 72 is most famous for helping you calculate doubling time, but the real power comes when you use it to understand how long it takes for your money to multiply far beyond just doubling. Once you grasp doubling, the next levels become much easier to calculate, because multiplying your money is simply stacking doubling cycles on top of each other. When you want to triple your money, for example, you're not just dealing with one doubling cycle. You're dealing with one full doubling cycle and then part of the next cycle. A doubling takes you from 1x to 2x, but tripling requires reaching 3x, which falls roughly 2/3 of the way into the second doubling cycle. This means tripling your money generally takes around 1.5 times your doubling time. If your money doubles every 9 years at 8%, then tripling your money takes around 13.5 years, and quadrupling your money takes 2 full doubling cycles, meaning 18 years at the same rate. This realization is powerful because now you can estimate how long it takes for your money to not just grow but multiply significantly. If your money doubles every 6 years at a 12% return, then quadrupling takes 12 years. But if it doubles every 12 years at a 6% return, then quadrupling takes 24 years. That difference is life-changing, and it comes purely from the rate of return. The math doesn't lie. Small changes in interest rates create massive differences when you look beyond doubling. The same logic applies to 10x growth. A 10x increase is about 3.5 doubling cycles. If your money doubles every 9 years, then 10x growth takes around 31.5 years. If your money doubles every 6 years, 10x takes around 21 years. People often see millionaires who invest for decades and think they got lucky. But what really happened is they had enough compounding time to allow multiple doubling cycles to stack on top of each other. When you understand how many doubling cycles are hidden inside a 10x return, you stop viewing wealth as magic and start seeing it as math. The difference between people who become wealthy and people who never escape financial struggle often comes down to whether they allowed their money enough doubling cycles to reach exponential levels of growth. Once you master the rule of 72, you can expand your understanding of exponential growth with 2 advanced rules, the rule of 114 and the rule of 144. These rules help you calculate tripling and quadrupling time without stacking doubling cycles manually. The rule of 114 estimates how long it takes for your money to triple, while the rule of 144 estimates how long it takes to quadruple. These formulas work just like the rule of 72. You simply divide the number, 114 or 144, by your interest rate. This gives you the approximate number of years needed to achieve that level of growth. If your investment returns 8%, the rule of 114 shows that tripling your money takes roughly 14.25 years. The rule of 144 shows that quadrupling takes around 18 years. These rules are extremely helpful for long-term planning because they show you how big your financial future can become if you commit to long-term growth. Tripling and quadrupling your wealth might sound unrealistic if you view money from a short-term perspective. But when you apply these rules, you quickly realize that these outcomes are very possible when compounding has enough time to work. These advanced rules are especially useful when planning for major milestones like retirement, buying a home, or building generational wealth. They give you an instant mathematical sense of whether your current investments are growing fast enough to meet your life goals. If your timeline is too long or your rate of return is too low, the rule of 114 and the rule of 144 expose the gap immediately. And once you see that gap clearly, you stop guessing and start making intentional decisions. You might increase your investment contributions, shift into assets with higher returns, or extend your timeline, but the important thing is that you're no longer blind to the math. You finally know exactly what needs to happen for your money to reach its full potential. Knowing all we've talked about, what's the actual math behind the rule of 72 is surprisingly simple, and that's why it's one of the most powerful financial tools you'll ever learn. It comes from a natural logarithm formula that calculates how long it takes for money to double when it's growing at a steady rate. The exact equation is time to double equals natural log of 2 divided by natural log of 1 plus interest rate. But that formula is too complex for everyday people, so financial experts simplified it. When you solve ln2, you get approximately 0.693, and when you divide that by typical interest rates, the number that consistently gives close to perfect estimates is 72. Not 70, not 75, 72 evenly divides by many interest rates, which makes it incredibly convenient. That's why the rule of 72 works so beautifully. It gives you a shortcut to a complex mathematical truth without needing a calculator or a degree in finance. But here's the real magic. The rule of 72 works because compounding isn't linear, it's exponential. That means money grows slowly at first, then faster, and then shockingly fast once the compounding starts stacking on itself. The rule of 72 helps you see the invisible speed of exponential growth. If your money grows at 10%, you know it will double in roughly 7 years. At 20%, it doubles in about 3.6 years. At 6%, it doubles in 12 years. With just one number, 72, you unlock the ability to predict your financial future with almost scary accuracy. The math behind the rule of 72 isn't just a calculation. It's the key to understanding how wealth actually builds. It turns a confusing concept into something you can use every single day to make better decisions about saving, investing, and growing your money. Nothing makes the rule of 72 more powerful than seeing how it plays out in real life. Let's take 3 people who all invest $10,000 but at different rates of return: 4%, 4%, and 4%, 8%, and 12%. The person earning 4% doubles their money every 18 years, so after 36 years, their $10,000 becomes $40,000. The person earning 8% doubles their money every 9 years, so after 36 years, their $10,000 becomes $160,000. The person earning 12% doubles every 6 years, so after 36 years, their money becomes $640,000. They all invested the same $10,000 for the same amount of time, yet the difference in their final outcomes is enormous. This comparison reveals something most people never understand. The rate of return matters more than the amount invested. Someone who invests less money at a higher rate of return can end up wealthier than someone who invests more money at a low return. This is why financial education is more valuable than a high income. People with modest incomes who understand compounding often surpass people with high incomes who rely on saving alone. The rule of 72 brings this truth to the front of your mind so you never forget that wealth is created through smart strategy, not just hard work. Another real-life example comes from understanding the effect of starting early. Suppose one person invests $5,000 at age 20 and earns 8% annually. By age 65, that $5,000 doubles about 5 times, turning into $160,000. But another person who waits until age 35 to invest the same $5,000 only gets 3 doubling cycles. Their $5,000 grows to $40,000. The difference, $120,000, doesn't come from investing more money. It comes from time. The rule of 72 makes you painfully aware that the biggest wealth hack in the world is simply starting early enough to complete more doubling cycles before life catches up. The rule of 72 becomes a powerful filter for judging investments. When someone tells you about a new opportunity, you don't have to guess whether it's good or bad. You simply divide 72 by the expected return and ask yourself whether the result fits your goals and timeline. If the return is 6%, then doubling takes 12 years. If that timeline feels acceptable, then it's a viable investment. But if doubling takes too long, that opportunity may not align with your financial goals. This ability to assess investments instantly prevents you from wasting time or falling for hype. It also helps you recognize unrealistic claims. If someone says they can deliver 50% returns annually, the rule of 72 immediately shows that your money would double every 1.4 years, something no legitimate investment can achieve consistently. This mathematical check protects you from scams, speculation, and poor decisions. It becomes your shield in a world full of misinformation. The rule of 72 reveals that money isn't grown by force or speed, but by direction. The direction of earning a reasonable return, staying invested long enough for compounding to multiply your results, and avoiding the emotional mistakes that reset your progress to zero. Most people stay broke, not because compounding doesn't work for them, but because they keep interrupting the process, pulling money out, chasing hype, doubting themselves, or waiting for the perfect moment to start. The wealthy succeed because they reverse that behavior. They start early even when the amount is small. They stay consistent even when the results feel slow. And they give compounding the one thing it cannot function without: time. Once you understand the rule of 72, you no longer look at your money the same way. You begin to see that every percent of return is a year of your life gained or lost. You begin to see that every delay is a double you never get back. And you begin to realize that exponential wealth is not a secret, it's a formula. A predictable, repeatable, unstoppable formula that anyone can use, but only the patient will respect long enough to see it work.